On today's episode of The Story Detective, with Camp NaNoWriMo drawing near, it's time to do one of those surviving NaNoWriMo tips videos, only we usually talk about time getting in the way and life responsibilities taking you outside of your writing, but during the apocalypse, none of that matters. So we're going to talk about what's important, how to get your writing prepped. So I have 11 things in terms of getting your project in order before you start Camp Nano. That's what we're going to talk about today. Grab your favorite beverage. I think we need something a little bit more than caffeine today. Why should Carol and Savvy have all the fun making drinking videos? Stick around. It's good. We're going to focus on how to have fun during the month of March 2020 and get our writing done in April. The beautiful thing about the world and what's going on today is we have Camp Nano in April, we have Camp Nano in June, and a month in between to write or prepare or do whatever we need to do. We should be able to get our manuscripts in pretty advanced shape. I don't know about you, but in spite of the craziness of the world, that almost kind of frees me. I feel like I don't have as much responsibility, as many things tugging at me, so I plan to write. If the apocalypse comes, let's go out doing what we love. I do have a few nuggets of things that I've seen out in the world this week when I did have to go into town, which is kind of interesting because things are definitely shifting and changing, and a couple of fun and funny stories that I'll share with you in a little bit. Let's get on with the 11 things you should consider before you start your NaNoWriMo project. Now this is primary because the want or the need of your character is going to drive everything else. The dystopian, the apocalyptic syndromes abound in fiction, and that whole saving the planet is an important one. But getting beyond that, being a little bit more realistic, because what are some wants that are important to your character that's going to be important to your audience? Think in terms of those elemental beliefs. It can't be a small one. This has to be a want that's going to sustain something and the reader's interest for at least 10 to 12 hours, which is the average time a person puts into reading a novel. So this has to be important. It has to be something that's a little larger than what we normally run into during our day-to-day life. Looking at some of those things in terms of life issues that are really important that people can identify with. This could be as simple as following your dream, overcoming the odds of life that stands in the way of that. And there's something we talked about in the last live stream, and that's characters that have a disability, whether it's mental or physical, and trying to get beyond that and convincing the world not to look at them as people who are somehow helpless or can't do it. It's still under the category of following your aspirations, but it's about being who you are and taking your stand in the world against those odds. I think anyone who's ever done anything the least bit different, whether it's being creative, whether it's a different kind of mindset, whether it's a disability, all of these things come under what people in real life will put down, but in fiction will cheer on. And yet fiction is the gateway to helping people understand, assimilate these differences into their own brains in a new way. Putting something fresh out to the world in terms of a view that I think most people know that they should be having, but are conditioned to think otherwise. I think that's a very relatable and important one. There's all kinds of elemental human desires. And if you can latch onto one of those, and that becomes the underwriting want and theme of your story, then you have something that's important that everyone can relate to. That usually takes the embodiment of the villain. And villains get neglected. Villains are everything that your hero is against. Whatever they are trying to achieve, the villain is anti to all of that. And they're closing doors and blocking it. That greed issue, gatekeeper attitude of the world blocks so many people. And yet if you give your villain credible reasons for being that person who's blocking your hero, who feels it's just as important to them to keep your hero out because fundamentally they believe that maybe they're doing the hero a favor, or maybe they're just out for themselves and they're trying to do their company a favor. Whatever it is that makes it believable, your villain has to stand behind it, and you have to have a credible argument for your villain and make whatever they're doing to stand in the way seem like it makes perfect sense to them, as much sense as the hero is putting into their dream, even if in reality it makes absolutely no sense. Because that psychology, that dichotomy between the hero and villain is everything. That's the conflict. That's the clash. That is your core storyline. That conflict cannot be tiny or easily overcome because both sides have such strong emotions about it. Sit down and write a paragraph or a page. Give what you know. And from that, don't be afraid to let your mind pour out and put more into that than you think you might need. Just do like freestyle writing or timed writing. Sit down with this character, even if you have a sketch, and say what else can help exacerbate their problems. What can we do to make that want seem more important to them? Pose questions to up the level of whatever is going on in your character, whatever their inner demons are, and how that reflects in their outer world. And then sit down and say, okay, I'm going to do a timed writing session. I'm going to spend the next 15 or 20 minutes babbling. It might seem like nonsense, but I guarantee by the time you get to that end of that 15 or 20 minutes, what you've written down is going to have some little nuggets of gold in there that you can add to what you already have in your sketch or in your mind. That could be the thing that puts it over the top, that makes everything seem more important, because it's all about character. No story is greater than the sum of its characters. Get inside of them, become them, even if who and what they are stands for everything that goes against your belief system. Actors do this all the time. And actors believe that they're not really playing villains, or they're not really playing bad people. They're playing people that have issues, or they're playing people that are heroes from a different reason, to go that extra mile and do whatever it takes to succeed, even if it hurts people. Because in their mind, hurting a few people now may save a lot more people down the line. Their methodology is completely different. You have to understand that in your story, getting inside the heads of your characters, there are no bad guys. There's just people with opposing opinions and different methods. When you can actually get into that and feel it, understand it, come up with reasons and ways to have fun with it, everything will start clicking. Villains are very hard. Characters that oppose what I believe in have been very hard. But once it clicks and I get that thing in my head that I can really get inside of their skin and make them believable, even understand it, because villains and those characters all have that spark of good, even if it's covered with so much crap that they think it's no good with people. People are going to get in the way. I've been blocked and blocked and blocked myself, and now I'm at the point where I just don't care anymore. I'm going to just push everything and my ideas through, be that bull in a china shop, and it doesn't care who gets broken. I'm going to meet my goal this time. If you had a time like this where you were confined in a house or a small space with the characters that you're writing, how would you react to them? Would you want to spend that time with them? You should want to spend time with your hero because there's something there that you like. You want to like them. With your bad guys and your other characters, how would you feel about spending that confinement with them? What kind of conversations would you have? If you think about it, start having those imaginary conversations, because what they tell you in those conversations can be, again, those pieces that really bring everything together. Because what they tell you, how they defend themselves against your argument in the little things and the big things, that could be the answer to solving a lot of problems and seeing your characters as real people. I promised you some stories of the apocalypse, and the first one is support your local business, because local businesses, especially small businesses, need your help right now. And they have some pretty clever apocalyptic marketing, at least they do around here. There's a local bar or pub that has curbside services. You can order a quart of daiquiri. They will bring it out to you curbside, and with every order, you'll get a free roll of toilet paper. Did you ever think that a roll of toilet paper would be good for marketing? But right now, especially around here, that's like gold. I can see people buying quarts of daiquiris just so they can get a roll of toilet paper. There was something on the radio the other morning saying how nobody has any toilet paper. I'm down to my last roll. What am I going to do next? One person called in and said, well, I have this thing in my house called a shower. There are alternatives. They may not be as convenient as what you're used to, but I think it's interesting that a local marketing ploy is to give you a free roll of toilet paper with every curbside order. The other thing I saw, yesterday I had a doctor appointment and I had to pick up a couple of things. I figure while I'm out, I'm going to take care of as much as I can because I don't want to keep going out and making a whole bunch of trips to the store and whatnot. So I'm driving downtown. There's something, I don't know if it's a local church or a food bank, and they're standing on the corner and they're motioning people over. I see this stuff on the table and these bags and these milk crates. I'm curious as to what they're motioning people to hand out. So I asked them while I was stopped at the corner, and they said they were giving out sandwiches, pre-made sandwiches, not just a little bag of sandwiches for somebody's lunch. They held up a big tote bag filled with sandwiches. To hand out a bag that large filled with sandwiches, it made me feel like I was living in a different dimension, or I had crossed over into a different time, because it's just so obscure. And yet it is kind of nice, attempting to help one another. A crazy big bag of sandwiches. It's important to know that how all of them that are going to interact view the other person, and how do their personalities come to play in that. Think about those opposing views. Think about how they view each other and what the differences are. Everything that's different is feared or makes people angry. I don't know how the human race manages to survive when everything that's outside of what certain people believe goes against their belief system. Can have such a dramatic and sometimes argumentative and mean reaction. So consider what those different views are and how your characters are going to react to them. What that does to them, not only on a physical exterior level, but interiorly. How those things are going to exacerbate those inner demons and fears when they come in contact with it. One character, multiple characters, a narrator, the authors. I mean, deciding point of view is important because point of view sets everything for the story. And you want to pick the point of view that's going to get the most out of everything. And when you choose a character, for each scene, every scene has a point of view character. And when you're slipping into that character's head, again, you're getting into their skin. So even in third person, you have to remember how they view things, because that narrative is going to be biased by their point of view, their belief system. So that goes back to getting into their skin, and when you hop into that point of view, whether it's first person multiple or third person with various points of view, understanding how that character thinks and feels is going to color every scene that they are the chief character in. And you choose that by deciding, when you have characters meeting in a scene, you pick the character that, again, is going to deliver most to your audience, to your readers from that scene. And that's the character whose point of view is going to be the leading point of view. Now, we covered that in the word stock, all the videos that went up last week. So if you haven't watched the word stock videos, there's a lot in there for hooking readers on page 1. Probably, in brief, the easiest, most effective way to hook a reader's attention on the first page is to show your main character in some kind of trouble or heading into it. If you can see a character that the reader is going to identify with and come to care about very shortly in your story, then what they do when they head into trouble, the reader doesn't want that to happen. So right away, you're developing that attitude of what the reader doesn't want to happen to this character. And if it's a problem that your main character has that's relatable, how you work that out in the narrative could be handled in myriad ways. Again, go back and watch those videos. There's a lot of useful information there. Meaning as close to that trouble as you can possibly get. Start it in the middle of whatever's going on. People want to see something happening. I think it's pretty clear to most writers that you shouldn't start your story with a whole lot of backstory or the character waking up in the morning and getting ready for their daily routine. That's because that's too distant from the action or the trouble. Drop them into a meat grinder or drop them into a setting as if they opened a door and suddenly this conversation was going on between your main character and some other characters. You're accidentally seeing something or eavesdropping as the reader on this conversation that before you opened the door to that book, you had no idea what was going on, but now you're caught up right in the midst of a scene that you're very curious about. People you didn't know before makes you say, what's going to happen next? What's going on here? You incite curiosity. Now that might sound like a redundancy. All conflict is visible. Yes, there's internal conflict, and we'll get to that in a minute. But all conflict, if you're watching a movie, is happening before your eyes. Those are the things that keep your writing happening on screen. Whether this is something that is words between a character, because dialogue is always visible on the page, because in your imagination, you're seeing the argument that you're hearing, even if it's happening in the next room. So using those senses, sight, sound, smell, everything that you can put into your scene to intrigue the reader, everything that you could put on the page in terms of your conflict, ask yourself, is it filmable? If you can film it, it's conflict that the reader is going to imagine, see in their mind. Interior conflict is pretty much an interior dialogue, and that turns into a soliloquy of the character ranting about themselves and their own views about what's going on in life. It's not filmable. It's the great part of a novel. You don't have that in film because you want to, as a novelist, get inside and understand what's going on inside and how that is often in direct conflict from what a character is actually saying or doing. Because so many people will be thinking one thing and saying or doing something else. That's how you build conflict on every level, the interior and the exterior. Keep in mind what the chief conflict is between your characters, the hero, the villain, the other characters that may oppose your hero, and all of that is going to happen through some sort of physical action. And that physical action or conflict is filmable. I hope your nano prep is going well, and I hope that you're looking forward to the coming months, that your writing is inspiring you in spite of anything that's going on in the world. That is our chief goal for April. And yet the world so inspires what we're doing. There are things going on out there that in hindsight will inspire new ideas. I'm sure every futuristic story or apocalyptic tale will have some aspects of what's happening in the world today. Everybody, at least every writer, is taking notes. So go easy on yourself. And if you need help, don't be afraid to ask. We're all here. We're all in this community. we should all be inspiring one another, not just in the current world and what's going on, but always. That's what it's about. That's what we dreamed about finding in a creative community. And we get out of the community what we put into it. Put your plans into action. And I have my little Facebook NaNoWriMo group. So if you're looking for a support group or people to hang out with and converse with, go on Facebook and look up Friends of NaNoWriMo and send me a request to join. So until next time, take care and keep those keyboards clacking.